Codependency. Let's talk about it. In a previous video, I spoke about my personal struggles with codependency. And so I just want to go a little bit more in depth about codependency. So the very first thing that we'll do is I'll explain what codependency is. Codependency is a response to trauma. And I have two separate definitions for you that may help you better understand. The first one, it's an excessive emotional or psychological reliance on a partner. The second definition that I have is it's an emotional and behavioral condition that affects an individual's ability to have a healthy, mutual, satisfying relationship. So first I had to learn that my thinking pattern was dysfunctional. And the very first thing that I thought was going on is that I was just simply a people pleaser, to be honest. On the weekends when I was off and people would ask me to do stuff or go places, I would show up knowing that I was exhausted and knowing that I needed to put the work in somewhere else or spend time just doing self-care. I wouldn't listen to myself. I would still try to please other people. I was also caught up in trying to be a perfectionist. When I realized that I had issues with saying no and creating boundaries, I had to make some changes. So with the outside world or people that I wasn't necessarily connected with romantically, that came easy for me. I just simply created boundaries, started saying no, and realized, hey, it might upset some people sometimes, but I need to take care of myself. I know you're probably thinking, well, you fixed the problem. No. So the issue came in when it came to my romantic relationships. I hadn't fixed a thing. I was the exact same person. I still dealt with people-pleasing ways. So now I'll talk to you about the exact things that I noticed in myself that were codependent. My personal interpretation of codependency is essentially you are in a miserable one-sided relationship. I realized that I was obsessively focusing on my partner and catering to my partner and making sure that all their needs were met. And I know some people are probably like, well, what's wrong with that? Isn't that what you're kind of supposed to do in a relationship? I thought the same exact thing. The issue comes in when you are neglecting yourself and your own emotional needs first. And then another thing is when your emotions are tied to the response from another person. So if I'm catering to another person and they don't give me the response or the validation that I need or that I'm looking for, then my emotions are now affected, right? Let me give you an example. So I was in a relationship with this one person and I offered to wash the person's clothes, right? And the person got back. They had this disgusted look on their face, like I'd done something wrong. The person was upset because I didn't fold the clothes after I washed the clothes. Now, clearly my emotions are caught up in the response that this person was giving. The next thing would be overgiving in a relationship. Tying it back to that previous relationship that I was in, it's almost like I was trying to prove that I was worthy of this person's love and admiration by doing a kind gesture. So I was constantly looking to try and prove that I was worthy in some kind of way of love from my partners. I was also hyper-focused on their needs. Let's say they had a problem at work, or it could be a problem with health or with family or any dynamic in their life. I would go out of my way to try and fix their problems or solve their problems. And I feel like it's okay to help people. I find joy in helping people. That just lights up my life. But the issue comes in when you start to neglect yourself. So by me hyper-focusing on them, it took away from my own self-love. Another thing that I noticed in codependency with myself is clinginess. I would get anxious when I wouldn't hear from a partner in a certain amount of time, or I would not have any issue with being with my partner all day or talking to my partner all day. It was just very unhealthy behavior. In any healthy relationship, you know that you have to have time apart. And I needed to understand that and not let my emotions be affected by the distance between us. I also relied on validation from my partners. I know I ain't perfect, y'all, but I like me. But I was noticing when I was in relationships that I would be focused on how the other person viewed me. And it's like outside of relationships, I feel healthy. I feel like I know who I am. I have healthy self-esteem. But as soon as I got close to a partner, I would care more about how they felt about me than how I viewed myself and knowing who I am. I just didn't have a healthy self-esteem while in a relationship with a partner if they did not validate me in the ways that I desired. And to sum it up, I was constantly trying to prove that I was worthy of love. I just didn't feel like I was enough. So that's really my interpretation of what codependency for myself has been. I don't have every single symptom of codependency, but those are just some of the codependent characteristics that I noticed in myself that I didn't like and that I'm constantly working to correct. So now let's move on to learning about what can actually cause codependency.